How's it flying, guys? Lance Corporal Hawk 30 here, and welcome to another Fat Electrician reaction. This is America's Unhinged Nuclear Testing, Operation Plumbob. Plumbob. I don't know why I said Plumbbob, but it is a bomb, so that's probably why. Plumbob. Plumbob. Okay, that's how it is. I've actually heard this story before. I saw the title, and remember, wait a minute. I think I've seen this. I have on Kyle Hill's channel. There was one of his series of Half-Life histories where he talked about this. They basically tested a nuclear bomb over 5 men. Like, it was directly above them to prove that if you are directly beneath where a nuclear bomb is set off, if it's high up in the sky, then you ain't going to be affected. I guess. I might be wrong on some of those details, but that's essentially what the test was, if I'm remembering correctly. But this is a Fat Electrician video, so it's going to be a lot more of a funny interpretation of those events. So maybe all those details will stick in my head just a little bit better. But either way, I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time because I want to go ahead and get into this. So, without further ado, link to the original video will be in the description. Please make sure that you have seen it before you watch my reaction to it. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and go.
Okay, I finally got around to doing that video on that time America launched a manhole cover in outer space with a nuclear bomb, and it turns out that's actually the lesser of two interesting parts of this story, because America also dropped a nuclear bomb on top of 6 people to prove that nukes were safe. Today we're talking about Operation Plumbob. The professional way to explain it would be to say that it is a bunch of nuclear testing that was carried out by the United States government in the late 1950s in the deserts of Nevada. However, in reality, it is more akin to the United States government dicking off with nuclear warheads in the desert like they're a bunch of rednecks on 4th of July with fireworks.
We'll shoot fireballs at it.
Oh boy.
But first, a word from our sponsor.
Oh, Nicholas.
Real quick before they get into the sponsor, was that from Joe Dirt? I've never seen that movie. But, that's... They're basically doing with these fireworks like what a bunch of rednecks would do with firecrackers. That's a scary thought.
Yeah. Is this my Father's Day present?
Well, I do have a surprise for you.
What's that?
The sponsorship.
Our credit cards are maxed out. I'm gonna need you to fix it. I'd like to go shopping.
Oh.
This video is brought to you by Henson's Shaving. Okay, here's the deal.
I need to get that, fuck communism shirt. I really do.
Henson's is a family-owned machine shop that makes parts for the aerospace industry. There's literally parts on the Mars rover that these guys made, and one day they woke up and they're like, hey, we're just gonna make the most precise safety razor on the market. And this is it. This is all they sell. It comes in aluminum or titanium. If you want to pay extra, it comes with a little stand. And then they also sell the razor blades, so you have a one-stop shop. Not because their razor blades are proprietary, because this thing will take any shaving razor blade on the market. You don't have to buy their proprietary cartridge. You don't have to sign up for their monthly delivery thing. No, you buy this one time and then you can put any 5-cent razor in it and shave for the rest of your life. So the product itself is fantastic, but more importantly, the company is awesome, because every time a YouTuber does an ad like this, they get sent a little media packet full of talking points, what to say, what not to say, and so on. Now, I'm not supposed to disclose this, but the brief that I got for Henson's basically said there is no script, do whatever you want, we trust you. Also, in the first paragraph,
like he's done
they
before.
said this, quote, if for whatever reason you don't get a good shave with our product, please let us know. If we can't help you, then don't endorse us. We think we've made one of the very best razors in the world. If you disagree, we'd rather not ask you for a non-genuine endorsement.
I'll endorse you.
Great. This is the type of company that you actually want to give your money to. I'm going to have a link for them down below. Let's get back to the video. All right, Operation Plumbob takes place in 1957. There was a total of 29 nuclear explosions, and they were testing all kinds.
How many?
Takes place in 1957.
How many?
There was a total of 29 nuclear explosions, and they were testing all kinds of different stuff.
This ain't like 29 tests in 57. It's a lot of nukes.
They had biomedical testing going on with pigs, seeing how radiation affected them and at what distance. Then they were covering the pigs with blankets, seeing what materials blocked the radiation, what materials didn't. They also conducted experiments on 18,000 U.S. service members, basically having them dig a trench off in the distance and hide in it while they detonated a nuclear warhead to see how they held up. And then they had different buildings and structures built out of different materials, trying to see which building materials blocked radiation the best and which ones blocked them the worst. Now, when this started, all the bombs that were being detonated off the top of a tower or from a high altitude weather balloon.
I mean, I get the thought process. Obviously, with radiation being involved, you're going to want to see how it affects living tissue, so the way to do that would be with live test subjects. Typically, as a human being, I would rather the animals take the brunt of it, but obviously, it's a thing of, I wonder if those soldiers volunteered or if they were ordered to, like, hey, you have to do this because we're telling you. It's one of those things. He's not saying it yet. I don't know if he'll bring it up if it's volunteer or ordered in this instance, but it's one of those things considering they knew how devastating it was to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so it's like, nerves would be on the mind.
They were just detonating nuclear warheads into the open atmosphere. What could possibly go wrong, right? And the important context here is that it's 1957.
Underselling it.
Became aware of nuclear weapons 12 years prior at the end of World War II, and a couple years after that, the USSR had their own nuclear weapons. We are well off into the Cold War, and nuclear hysteria is at an all-time high. So by this point in time, the American general public doesn't just understand that nuclear weapons make a really big boom, they also, to some degree, also understand radiation and nuclear fallout. So everybody kind of understands what's going on at this point. I mean, they've even got cartoon turtles teaching kids what to do in case a nuclear bomb gets dropped near them.
Yeah, those little things. Duck and cover, that's right. Depends on how close you are to the nuke if duck and cover works. But I'll give a quick recommendation for anyone that is curious. If he doesn't get into this, if he doesn't go into the specifics of how radiation works and all that, check out Kyle Hill's channel. His playlist, Half-Life Histories, deals with all sorts of nuclear accidents and stuff like that, like the Castle Bravo disaster. It was a much bigger nuke than was anticipated because the calculations were off or something unexpected happened, and multiple videos on like Chernobyl and stuff like that. If you guys want to know that, go check out Kyle Hill's channel for more specifics on that. It's interesting.
So naturally, when everybody finds out the government is strapping nukes to balloons and blowing them up in the desert, there's quite a bit of concern, you know, like, hey, maybe that's a bad idea. And then everybody finds
fair
out
concerns.
This is actually how
You
the
don't
government's
know the
planning on
specifics.
protecting them from a nuclear strike from the Soviet Union by taking one of our nukes and blowing up the Soviet nuke in the sky right above everybody's heads. Ladies and gentlemen, the Genie air-to-air missile. Okay, you gotta remember, this is the 1950s. There's no intercontinental ballistic missile that can reach from the Soviet Union into America yet. So this means that the only nuclear strike risk really comes from Soviet bombers flying into America and dropping their bombs. So we gotta be ready to shoot down these planes, right? Obviously. Problem, again, it's the 1950s. There's no sophisticated anti-air systems yet, okay? There's not really any air-to-air missiles that our fighter jets can shoot accurately. So, the going theory was that we're going to use this nuclear fucking missile and shoot it at an entire formation of Soviet planes and blow all of them up at once.
Genius!
Okay, and on a rudimentary level, this makes complete sense,
Yeah, I mean, it does
right?
make
If you
sense,
can't
like
be
he's
accurate,
saying.
you increase the margin of error.
That's a way to put it. Like, it's like, listen, if it's just one regular missile, I might get one down, but if there's more than one, I want to be able to take them all out, get the biggest AoE as possible.
If you're not good with shooting a pistol, maybe grab a shotgun, it's easier to hit your target. However, what they've went and done with the Genie missile might be a little bit of overkill, because what they've essentially said is, well, I'm not very accurate with air-to-air missiles for shooting down planes, so instead I've opted to create a spawn point for the fucking sun. So naturally, now everybody's absolutely terrified, and the government's like, guys, calm down, it's gonna be completely fine. There's no, you know what? I'll just prove it to you. Give me 5 volunteers and a camera guy, but don't tell him what he's doing. On July 19th, 1957...
Okay, so they are volunteers, but they don't know the full scope of what it is they are doing. Oh, that makes it better. if I'm volunteering for something, I'd like to know what it is I'm volunteering for. It's like, hey, you want to volunteer to help? I'll give you $10,000 for, like, sure. Like, what is it? I don't worry about it. It ain't gonna be nothing hard. It's just something important. It's like, okay, you get out there, middle of the desert. Okay, so what am I gonna be doing? Just don't move. We're blowing a nuke up over you. What? I don't know if they were paid, by the way. That's just me throwing a random scenario. Like, I don't know if these guys were paid extra. I would hope so. I would hope they at least sprang for replacement pants.
The United States government detonated a Genie air-to-air nuclear missile with a 1.5 kiloton warhead directly above the heads of 5 U.S. service members that volunteered to be there, and a camera guy that was not informed of what he was doing until a couple hours beforehand.
I'm out. What? You cannot pull out of this. I'm pulling out. You're way too deep to pull out. I'm pulling out. No, we are not. You're leaving it in. I've been pulling out for years, son.
And in your head, you probably picture like 5 dudes in hazmat suits with a welding mask on. No, it's literally 5 bros in their military uniforms standing in the middle of the desert with no glasses, making direct eye contact with a nuclear explosion.
They should have at least given sunglasses
that says Ground Zero, Population 5, because that shit's funny.
We felt a heat pulse, a very bright light, a fireball. It is red. The sky looks black about it. It is boiling above us there. It is rapidly losing its color. There is the ground wave. It is over, folks. It is tremendous, directly above our heads. It went.
Okay, now let's just take a minute and appreciate the fact that you probably just witnessed the most testicular fortitude ever captured on camera. Secondly, let's also admire the fact that the sign that says Ground Zero, Population 5 is not only funny at face value, but it's hilarious that they only counted the 5 of them in the camera and not the cameraman himself, because even back in 1957, they knew that the cameraman never dies.
I'm actually like Frodo Baggins.
And out of respect for them being, to the best of my knowledge, the only 6 people that have ever volunteered to have a nuclear warhead dropped directly above their foreheads, I'm going to go ahead and read their names off. The cameraman's name is George Yoshitake, and the 5 service members are as follows. Colonel Sidney Bruce, Lieutenant Colonel...
Their injuries are not service-related? What injuries?
Colonel Frank Ball, Major John Hughes, Major Norman Bodinger, and Don Luttrell. Apparently the cameraman, Mr. Yoshitake, had filmed a bunch of other nuclear tests in the past, and he thought that this was going to be no different than all the other ones, you know, where he's miles and miles away just filming a mushroom cloud, and he didn't know that they were going to be dropping the bomb directly above him until like a couple hours beforehand, and he was already there. After arriving to the test site, he was briefed on what was going to go down, and according to him, he was pretty much completely unfazed. He did not care at all, and he was 100% game to partake in this experiment, which I think we can all agree is gangster as fuck.
Yeah, no kidding.
What did you picture?
I walk in there like a fucking gangster.
And then he goes on to live a normal life until he passed away in 2013 at the age of 84. And the other 5 service members that were also involved in this experiment all lived full, happy lives. As far as I could tell, the youngest any of them passed away was 71, and the rest of them all lived into their 70s.
Still a long life.
And while it's great that they were all okay, the PR stunt itself wasn't really that effective because the general public wasn't swayed very much by it. They still wanted them to stop blowing up nuclear bombs all the time. So finally, the US government's like, fine, we'll stop blowing up so many bombs in the desert. And the American people are like, and above the desert in the atmosphere. Okay, fine. And above the desert in the atmosphere. And in the ocean. Fine, we won't detonate nuclear bombs in the ocean either. And that is the story of how nuclear testing finally came to an end. No, I'm just kidding. The government then decided to opt for the loophole, and they were going to bore a 500-foot deep hole in the middle of the desert so that they could blow up a nuke underground, because nobody would be mad, because people were only mad about on the surface, in the atmosphere, and in the ocean. Surely, blowing one up underground wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? I mean, what could go wrong?
Delete me!
What are you doing? I already did the ad.
Delete me is gonna do every episode from now on.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, how much are they paying?
Huh?
Don't worry about it.
Anyways, you guys know the deal by now. It's pretty straightforward. You
Really?
delete me money. They turn around and they make sure the data brokers on the internet aren't selling
Every
your personal
video now,
information,
delete
and
me is going to
after
be
they get it all
involved.
taken down
Okay,
initially,
okay.
they
So
continue to monitor it and make sure nobody
okay,
else
that's
starts selling
good.
it in the
That's
future.
good.
So if you're
I need to
interested,
sign
I'll
up.
have a link in a
I
discount
keep
code
forgetting
down
to,
below.
but I
Let's
need
keep
to.
going. I mean, I'm not an
When I can
overly
afford
smart
it.
guy or an explosions expert or anything, but I mean, off the top of my head, I've got some concerns. Primarily, I've seen the cinematic masterpiece Armageddon, where Bruce Willis convinced me that a bunch of dudes that work on an oil rig are easier to train to be astronauts than teaching astronauts how to drill a fucking hole. I mean, that was the entire premise of the movie. Drill a hole, stick a nuke down it, blow the planet you're on in half. I understand 500 feet probably isn't deep enough for that to be realistic, but still, nothing good can come of this. You're gonna like piss off King Kong or unleash that Balrog thing that killed Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. Something bad is gonna happen.
The Balrog.
Now, luckily, they're not planning on detonating a nuclear warhead in this hole. They're just planning on blowing one up. And what I mean by that is the premise of this experiment was basically, remember, we're worried about the USSR bringing bombers, planes, and dropping a nuclear bomb on America. And we're planning on shooting those USSR bombers down. Essentially, we're going to blow up those planes that have a nuclear weapon on board. They want to know what happens when you blow up a nuclear weapon with a conventional type bomb or missile, right? So they're going to stick a nuclear warhead in the hole with another bomb, and they're going to blow up the conventional bomb and see if that blows up the nuclear bomb as well, because we need to know that. And the going theory is that the nuke is not going to explode because nuclear bombs have to be set off in a very particular way, and if they don't get set off in that exact way, there's safety measures that are actually supposed to kill the nuke rather than set it off. But that's all theoretical, and there's only one real way to actually test it, right? You're gonna back up, grab a camera, yell World Star, and see what happens. So that's exactly what they do. July 26, 1957, they have the first underground nuclear test ever, known as Pascal-A. Takes them all day to set it up. They gotta lower the device down this hole, they get everything ready, then on top of the hole, you know, in case the nuclear bomb does go off, they lower a 5-foot thick slab of concrete that weighs thousands and thousands of pounds, and then on
the
top
manhole
of the
you
hole,
talked about,
they have
isn't
some kind
it?
of lid. I'm not sure what material it was, they didn't say, but sitting on top of the lid there was a bunch of sensing equipment, because remember, they're not expecting a big explosion, they're expecting a really small explosion, and they want to get as much data from it as possible, so they have like sensors and cameras aiming down the hole through this lid. And I will now let the head scientist in charge, Bob Brownlee, take the story from here. And
Please
I
give.
They finally got it down the hole, by my recollection, about 10 o'clock at night or so.
Okay, so late.
There wasn't much time to go back to Mercury, go to bed, get up the next morning and shoot it. So somebody said, why don't we just shoot it now and then go in? And it was the world's finest Roman candle, because at night it was all visible. Blue fire shot hundreds of feet into the air. Everybody was down in the area, and then they all jumped up, jumped in their cars, and drove like crazy.
I would have waited.
Who was there and who came out of the area. So the safety equipment didn't work. The nuclear part went off, generating an explosion about 50,000 times bigger than they were anticipating. Apparently, the explosion was so large that seismic equipment from all over the world could sense this explosion. You know, seismic equipment being the shit they use to detect earthquakes. Another scientist that was present described it as, and I quote, the biggest damn Roman candle you ever saw. It was beautiful. Big blue glow in the sky. And because of this, the United States government comes to the
big blue glow in the sky. That means radiation. That means not good. Is he gonna... Okay, how many people died from radiation sickness after this particular experiment? I think that's an important question to be asking here. Is he gonna bring it up? Did it happen? What happened?
Realization, okay, maybe underground nuclear testing isn't that great of it. I'm just fucking with you guys. They redid the exact same experiment like a month later, August 27th, 1957. And they didn't really change a whole lot about the experiment. They took the device, they stuck it down the hole, they put thousands of pounds of concrete directly on top of it, and then the only thing they did change was, instead of whatever lid they were using before that they could like put sensors through and shit, they went and tried to control the explosion by getting a 2,000-pound manhole cover, and then they welded it shut over the top of the hole. They then took the best high-speed camera they could find and aimed it at the manhole cover, because if the safety device failed again, whatever happens to the manhole cover was, and I quote, scientifically interesting, aka they're just doing Mythbusters shit with DOD money. So they detonate the bomb.
I
the
mean,
safety device fails, the
how are you gonna know? How are you gonna know if it don't try it?
In hindsight, what happened is when you have a nuclear bomb go off with thousands of pounds of concrete directly on top of it, that concrete is instantly vaporized and turned into gas, and then that gas is also instantly superheated, and superheated gas expands a lot, and this is an enclosed environment because they welded the manhole cover shut. If you're not picking up what I'm putting down, the scientists just inadvertently turned the planet into a fucking potato gun and launched this 2,000 pound manhole cover, presumably into outer space. So all the scientists, being pros, start asking the question that everybody wants the answer to. How fast do you think that manhole cover was going? So they go to the high-speed camera. Okay, this camera is taking 1 frame per 1,000th of a second. Okay, it's a lot of fucking pictures. The manhole cover appears in 1 singular frame, and that is it. So because it was only captured by a single frame and not multiple frames, they can't calculate how far it was traveling over a period of time, so all they can calculate is the minimum speed that it would have to be going to only be captured by a single frame in the span of the camera shot. And the calculation they came up with was that manhole cover was moving at least 150,000 miles an hour. That is Mach 195. It is 195 times faster than the speed of sound. And the best part about all this is that this happened prior to Sputnik 1, meaning that if this manhole cover made it into outer space, it was the first man-made object to ever make it into outer space. Buh! It didn't make it into outer space. It would have burnt up in the atmosphere just like meteorites do. Buh! Oh shit, you're right. I completely forgot that every single meteorite that's ever come into the Earth's atmosphere is burnt up completely and never actually makes it to the ground. I'll be right back. I've got to go tell all the dinosaurs to stand up and quit being babies, because clearly they're exaggerating.
Also, footage of meteorites hitting people's cars and houses, because that actually happens. Yeah. It's rare that it happens, but it does.
Guys, they're dead. This is completely different from a meteorite for multiple reasons. For one, a meteorite's never been made out of 2,000 pounds of refined steel. For two, a meteorite's moving at about 30,000 miles an hour when it collides with the Earth's atmosphere. This thing's moving at 150,000 miles an hour, and space is only 62 miles up, okay? This thing made it to outer space in a second. Even friction was like, what the fuck was that? Anyway, the collision with the atmosphere is nothing like it.
Thing bypassed physics. Newton's looking, going, yes, exactly. I don't think I can equate that. What the hell?
Meteorite, right? A meteorite is a rock traveling through the vacuum of outer space with no other forces acting upon it, and it collides with Earth's atmosphere, and then it gets slowed down and it gets burnt up, okay? The manhole cover isn't just moving at 150,000 miles an hour through the atmosphere. It is being propelled by a channeled nuclear explosion with all of the gases, aka the atmosphere behind it, also moving 150,000 miles an hour in the same direction.
Yes, science!
Okay, and just to be clear,
Like, the Flash is probably the only thing that fast. And he's fictional.
I'm not saying that I'm correct. I'm simply saying I'm incredibly ill-equipped to answer this question accurately, and no offense, but there's about a 99.999% chance that you are too. So my verdict in regards to this manhole cover is going to be that it's still up in the air. It's a horrible dad joke. I'm sorry. Moving on. Now, fast...
Also, I don't think he said it, but the manhole is metal, whereas meteorites are rock. Bless me.
Fast forward, nuclear testing continued both underground, above ground, and in the atmosphere until 1963, when they signed a treaty with the Soviet Union and Great Britain that the only nuclear testing allowed was going to be underground. Now, fast forward again a couple of decades, and people's concerns over atmospheric nuclear bomb detonations turned out to be 100% legitimate because a ton of people ended up having elevated risks of cancer. Both the 18,000 soldiers that were present at Operation Plumbob had highly elevated likelihoods of developing leukemia and thyroid cancer, as well as thousands of civilians that were living in towns near the test sites. And I know what you're thinking. How come those people got cancer, but the guys that literally stood underneath a nuclear bomb as it was detonated didn't? Well, the way that nuclear radiation works is that it dissipates pretty quickly over like 2 to 3 days and then it's completely gone. Which is why like all the old videos and protocols telling you what to do in case of a nuclear attack always told you, you know, duck and cover from the initial blast wave and then make your way inside and stay inside for like a week. After
He's already on the subject, so it feels like kind of redundant for me to mention, but I'm pretty sure if it detonates closer to the closer to the ground that a nuclear bomb detonates, the more likelihood that the debris from that explosion, meaning the stuff that's underneath it / around it, the closer you are to the ground, the higher the risk of nuclear fallout occurring. That's why, like at Hiroshima, right now, it's a thriving city, despite the fact that it was nuked almost 80 years ago, right? Because it detonated, I think at least a couple hundred feet above ground. So, like, there was still a lot of fallout, don't get me wrong, obviously, but because it didn't mix with as much surface level stuff, there was less to hold the radiation, if that makes sense. I'm probably butchering the meaning of it, how it actually works. But again, go check out Kyle Hill's video on why Hiroshima is still very well populated and is a thriving city today, and why it's not a nuclear wasteland. Because you need something to mix in with that for the fallout to really, really be bad and last longer than a few days, like he's saying.
After that, the radiation is decayed enough that it shouldn't hurt you. So the guys that were exposed to that bomb directly overhead were exposed to it for presumably 10, 15 minutes before they dipped and left, whereas a lot of these soldiers were exposed to repeated nuclear explosions over and over again, or these towns, the explosions would go up into the atmosphere and the radiation would be caught in the wind, and it would just carpet these towns with radiation for days over and over and over again over the course of years, hundreds of nuclear detonations exposing these people to radiation. Now, fast forward like 3 decades to 1990, the United States government, with its infinite charity and outstanding moral compass, finally decides that they're going to pass the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, where they're going to pay these people that were wrongfully exposed to radiation due to their negligence. If you got cancer and you could prove that it was because of them, they would go ahead and they would give you $75,000 in one lump sum if you were a soldier on the ground, or if you were an innocent civilian just living your life in a town miles and miles away, they would give you $50,000. There's no other legal course that you could take. You can't sue them for more. You can't reject it. Just, here's what I'm going to give you. Fuck off.
Wow, that sounds like a really good deal. How about I give you the finger?
Okay, just so we're on the same page with this, the United States government takes your tax money, whether you want them to or not. You don't get an option. They're taking your money, okay? They then turned that money into radiation that they used to poison Americans with and give them cancer. Then, 30 years after the fact, they decided, you know what, we should make things right by giving the people that survived this long and can actually prove it was our fault. We'll give them like 50 grand. Bear in mind, that 50 grand is also money that was tax money that they took. So they took your money, used it to poison you, and then to pay you off, they gave you some of your money back.
I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Can you understand how absolutely crazy that is?
I am fully in support of axing like 90% of all the taxes Americans pay, and then having the rest of the money that the government uses just be from tariffs. I am perfectly fine with that. And anyone thinking that it can't be done, well, Thomas Jefferson was able to completely fund the U.S. government solely off of tariffs alone without any at-home tax. Thomas Jefferson was able to do that. So if you just take out all the stupid retarded taxes we got, like property tax, inheritance tax. Like if my dead grandmother tells me I'm giving you $1,000 and then the government says, well, we're taking 100 of that. Like, no, fuck you. That's not for you. You don't get to say that. It's not for you. Well, we still are taking it anyway because it's a tax. No. Inheritance tax is completely retarded, and so does property tax. You're paying money on a property that you supposedly own just to keep it. Like, no, you're renting a property at that point. You don't own the property if when you miss a payment, the government can come in and seize it from you. That's not ownership. That's rental. It's like, No, cut out property tax, because that's bullshit right there, that you have to pay money on something that's legally in your name, and if you miss a payment, the government can steal it from you. No, fuck property tax. Property tax, screw inheritance tax, so many other stupid taxes, just axe them. Leave only, and I mean only, sales tax. That can be left alone, period. Like, I am fine with just paying taxes on a product, and that be it. Cut out income tax, because otherwise, not only is the government taking money out of your paycheck, you're also spending more money of yours is being taxed after your paycheck's been taxed when you pay for goods and groceries and stuff like that. So just make it there be only sales tax and nothing else, and then the rest of the money the government uses and wastes, have it be from tariffs. So that's how I see it. Like, fuck taxes.
Imagine if somebody walked up to somebody on the street and was like, hey, give me all the money in your wallet or I'm going to throw you in a cage for years against your will. And you're like, okay. And you give them all the money in your wallet. They turn around, they go buy brass knuckles, come back, and then punch you in the face with the brass knuckles that they just bought with your money. And then they look down at you and they're like, oh, I really hurt you, my bad. And then they get into your pocket, find another $20 bill, pull that $20 bill out of your pocket, and then hand it back to you to pay you off for punching you in the face.
It's never too early to learn that the government is a greedy piglet that suckles on a taxpayer's teat until they have sore, chapped nipples.
I gotta end this video. I feel radicalized. In conclusion, this has been the story
Government
of
will
6 crazy
do that
bastards that volunteered to have a nuclear bomb detonated directly above their head, and that time that America may have accidentally launched a manhole cover into outer space, potentially becoming the first man-made object ever, and that time that the U.S. government poisoned tens of thousands of people with radiation, giving them cancer, and basically had no consequences for it whatsoever. Thanks for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
What's the post-credits?
Government giving people cancer with zero consequences while trying to tell me I can't drink raw milk. I don't even want to drink raw milk. I'm just mad they think they can tell me I can't.
What? Is that a thing? I shouldn't be asking such a stupid question. Of course there's going to be a retarded ass law out there that says, oh, you can't have something natural. Like, you gotta... If I continue on, I'm going to start ranting, so I'd rather not rant. Just... I could rant. I'm not going to. It's late. I gotta get... The government is greedy and retarded. That's the best way I can surmise it up. I'm gonna end it here. But yes, that is an interesting story that I had heard details from before. I just couldn't remember exactly how it went. And he is A1 right about, and I had forgotten this detail, you blow stuff up that's irradiated off enough and there's a wind current, it's going to settle somewhere. It's going to increase the likelihood of a... Excuse me, I got hiccups. Likelihood of cancer and other stuff. The not good stuff. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I got to get to bed. I got to get up in the morning. What did you guys think of this? Let me know in the comments down below. Like if you enjoyed, comment your favorite part of this reaction, subscribe if you're new, and tap the bell to get notified whenever I upload a video so you don't miss your reactions, gameplay, or otherwise. Also, go check out my Discord. Link is in the description. Come join me. We'll talk. Post memes, songs, videos, artwork. You can support yourself and just have some fun. This has been Lance Corporal Hawk 30, signing off.